I can't afford to pay for mom's nursing home fees anymore. I received a call for my husband from his sister who lives in Canada. I was taken aback when I heard the message on his behalf. Nursing home fees for mom? What are you talking about? I have been sending $1,000 every month. I had no idea about this and I informed her that mom had already passed away. What on earth is going on? My name is Amanda, a 50-year-old housewife. I have 2 grown-up children with my somewhat submissive husband. Now, it's just the 2 of us living freely. My husband is the same age as me, is unusually submissive for our times. Because of this, we often had arguments with our children. But once they moved out, the house felt strangely quiet. Now, I sometimes think it's good that he's so submissive. I cherish the moments when I feel happy doing things for him. After my father-in-law passed away, my mother-in-law moved into a nursing home, not wanting to be a burden on us. She enjoyed talking with her peers and was content. However, she passed away from a stroke. My husband has a single sister. She moved to Canada and became a successful entrepreneur. She was the pride and joy of my mother-in-law. So when mom passed away, we wanted to inform her, but my husband said he couldn't reach her. Without her, we held the visitation and funeral. Months after settling my mother-in-law's belongings and interment, the sister we couldn't contact reached us. Amanda, it's been a while. Is my brother there? It was unusual for her to call the landline. If she wanted to reach my husband, she could call his cell. I told her he's been coming home late from work lately and suggested she try his cell. I also told them that my number had not changed. She said she already tried but couldn't get through. She had something important to convey, so she called the house. I offered to take a message for him and she agreed. Please tell my brother that I can't continue paying the $1,000 monthly fee for mom's nursing home. Mother-in-law's nursing home fee requested by my husband is $1,000? What is it? I was puzzled. What was she talking about? Should I pretend to know or tell her I had no idea? But mom had already passed away. Maybe she didn't know because she couldn't be reached. Given the situation, not being able to pay the monthly $1,000 wouldn't be a problem. I informed her that mom had passed away months ago and that my husband tried to contact her but couldn't. She was shocked. She didn't know about mom's passing or the funeral. She said she had spoken to my husband over the phone after that. Of course, my husband knows that his mother has passed away. Why didn't he tell her about mom? And I had never heard about the monthly $1,000 payment. I apologized for not knowing about her contributions. My husband never mentioned it, but mom's nursing home fees should have been deducted from her pension. If she received money from her proud daughter, she would have mentioned it. I decided to dig a little deeper. Your mother must have been so grateful, right? Well, actually, I never spoke directly with her. What? It was always through my brother, so I sent the money to his account. Amanda, what's going on? My husband uses his bank account for all our living expenses. His salary is deposited there too. I'm aware of our finances, but I have never seen the $1,000 that his sister mentioned. Just to be sure, I contacted the bank where we had closed my mother-in-law's account to check the transactions, but there were only her pension deposits and the monthly nursing home fees being deducted. So where did the $1,000 his sister mentioned go? It means my husband has a bank account I don't know about. I asked her for the account details and the bank's name. Throughout our conversation, she was trembling with grief over her mother's death and anger for not being informed about the funeral. What is my brother hiding, not telling me about our mother's death? Unbelievable. I want to fly back to the US and confront him right now. I promise I'll uncover whatever he's hiding. I didn't know what else to say at that moment. I never imagined I would be a victim too. After hanging up, I decided to search my husband's room. After our kids moved out, he wanted a study for himself. I didn't mind him using the spare room. Our sleeping arrangements had changed over time and I often found it convenient. However, I have been told not to go to sleep before my husband gets home. So I wake up reflexively when the front door opens, but he always told me not to enter his study. He would ask for it to be clean, but only after he tidied up a bit. He said it was because of work-related stuff, but now I wasn't so sure. I went into the forbidden room and checked the trash can. It seemed he hadn't had time to tidy up recently due to business trips and late nights. Among the receipts from the past 2 weeks, one stood out. It was for something unusual for a man to buy. I hadn't received such a gift from him. Where did it go? I couldn't find it among his belongings. That night, as usual, he came home late. I waited up for him as he had asked. I had been told not to have dinner beforehand, so before I went to take a shower, I asked if I could talk to him for a bit. After a brief greeting, he said he was tired and retreated to his study. He took a shower later, but then went back to his study and didn't come to bed. I felt more distant from him than ever. Of course, since the bedrooms are starting to become separate, it feels like it's too late, but I can't help but feel a little distant. The next day, I took the suspicious receipt to a private investigator. The findings revealed an unexpected side of my husband. When I shared the news with his sister, her anger intensified. I felt foolish for always trying to be the obedient wife to my submissive husband. What a joke! He was just pretending. He can't treat me like some housemaid. I'll show him. His sister and I hatched a plan. One day, after all preparations were made, he said he was going on another business trip. I saw him off as usual, but I knew this wasn't a regular trip. After he left, I prepared for a divorce, boarded a plane to Canada, and left the US. I met up with his sister upon landing in Canada. His sister was already keeping an eye on my husband and pointed out where he was getting cozy with a woman in the lobby. Seemingly content, they sat down, arms wrapped around each other. How could they be so brazen in public? I had to hold back my anger for the sake of our plan. The receipt I found in my husband's study led to some shocking revelations from the private investigator. Firstly, he was alone when he made the purchase, but a conversation with the store clerk revealed the gift was likely for a younger woman. It was a pricey piece of women's jewelry, a design popular among younger women. My husband was having an affair with a younger woman. My husband was having an affair with a woman, and he also gave her expensive accessories. Once I knew about the affair, the rest was easy to piece together. The $1,000 his sister sent every month was going into an online bank account my husband had secretly opened. He had been using that money for trips with his mistress, disguised as business trips. He often went on these business trips on a set day each month. From this pattern, we deduced he would be in Canada today and executed our plan. His sister mentioned he had been to Canada before without any apparent reason, probably scouting locations to impress his mistress. And this was after his mother passed away. How could he not tell his own sister the truth? He seemed like a devil in disguise. As my husband was deep in conversation with his mistress, his sister and I confronted him. Seeing me, someone who shouldn't be there, shocked him. He dropped his travel bag and let go of the woman. Fancy meeting you here. Business in Canada? Does your company even have international dealings? I have little social experience. I might be naive, but the investigator had informed me that his company had no international business. We recently started. She's a local interpreter. He stammered, trying to cover up. That's when the woman shouted, "You liar! You said you were single!" and slapped him. Turns out, she was in our plan too, because she was a victim as well. He had lied about being single and hinted at marriage. She was in her 20s and didn't want to waste time on a man with no intention of settling down. While I despised her, I also felt sorry for her. Once we revealed the truth, we decided to either make her an ally or not. Based on her reaction, she was devastated to learn she was the other woman. She agreed to help with our plan. His sister suggested we move the confrontation to her place, away from prying eyes. There, we grilled my husband. He had asked his sister for the $1,000 monthly, supposedly for their mother's nursing home fees, just to fund his escapades. He had never been money-minded, so I had given him an allowance. But he decided the amount as their relationship deepened, that wasn't enough. He feared getting caught if he asked me for more, so he lied to his sister. When their mother passed away sooner than expected, he panicked. Instead of telling his sister the truth, he lied, saying he couldn't reach her. It wasn't that I couldn't contact her, but that I hadn't contacted her about her mother's death or about mother-in-law from the beginning. I reported it as unreachable.
I was afraid of losing the monthly $1,000 and scared of facing my sister if she found out,
he admitted. If she returned for the funeral, she might discover his deception. He said he was afraid that someone would find out how he had defrauded them of his money. How could he be so selfish? He had no idea how hard it was for a woman to work alone in a foreign country. His sister, though successful, was still single and probably wanted to save for the future. How did you come up with $1,000? To think he used her hard-earned money on his affair? Between this and hiding their mother's death, how could he trample over people's feelings like this? I couldn't comprehend it. He was fundamentally different from me. I can't be with you anymore. I want a divorce. My husband didn't respond. I wished he would show some remorse, even just a hint, maybe. But he didn't. He questioned how I, who had never worked a proper job, could survive after a divorce at 50. Could I really make it without him, the one providing for me? Of course, I knew the reality, but that's not what I needed to hear right now. Even though I knew, I still wanted a divorce. I was utterly fed up with my husband, who never understood my feelings. I boldly confronted him with evidence, including photos from a private investigator agency. Realizing he would surely lose in court, my husband finally agreed to my demands and signed the divorce papers. The next day, my sister-in-law kindly offered to let me stay until my flight back to the US. My husband tried to join, but she firmly said she didn't remember having such a worthless brother and kicked him out. I hadn't submitted the papers yet, but emotionally, he felt like a stranger. Just the thought of being under the same roof irked me, so I backed up my sister-in-law. His mistress thought, I don't need a middle-aged man with such a terrible character. She was disgusted by him using a family death for his own desires and left my sister-in-law's house. Abandoned by both me and his mistress, my husband seemed to chase after her. They had a spat outside, and it seemed she dumped him for good. As a result, he was left wandering in Canada, a place he chose for a romantic getaway, without even understanding the language. The next day, I returned to the US and immediately filed the divorce papers. I also moved to a new place I had been preparing for. Though I had limited experience in society, I wasn't a housewife for no reason. I had saved money secretly over the years, and when I told my kids about everything, they offered some support. In today's age, 50 is still young. I believe I can start a second chapter in my life. From time to time, my kids visit, and my days are filled with joy. In fact, I feel my relationship with them has improved since the divorce. As for my ex-husband, he somehow managed to return from Canada. But the home he returned to was a mere shadow of its former self. He didn't expect me to act so quickly. He probably hoped to persuade me to reconsider the divorce after returning. Now that it's impossible, he must be in shock. In future, he will be burdened with a divorce settlement from me and repaying the money he deceitfully took from his own sister. I also heard his mistress is suing him, demanding, "Give me back my 20s." Most of his salary goes to these payments, and he's living in extreme poverty. I have even heard He's been spotted at soup kitchens. I don't feel pity. My fallen ex-husband? This is the consequence for deceiving people and exploiting a family death.